Okay, hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Jen and I will be the trainer for today's webinar. Today we're going to be talking about the types of fields in church windows and customizing those fields. If you're following along in our workbooks, which are available for purchase on our website, this is going to be in the Membership 102 workbook on pages 2 through 7. And if you have any questions as we're going, we have Josh here with us today answering those questions. So go ahead and type those into the questions panel as they come up and he will answer them. If there's something that I think would benefit everyone, I'll read them out loud and answer them. Do keep those questions topical to today's topic, customizing fields in church windows. And if you have questions that are specific to your data, give us a call at 800-533-5227. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So if we go into Church Windows membership and we open up our people file, everything in the individual fields area is what we're going to be talking about today. There are different types of fields in this area, and we're going to be talking about how to manage all of these fields. So some of the types of fields we have are yes and no fields, and an example of that is the include on directory, as well as the inactive. Those are both yes or no fields where you check a box. Checked means yes, unchecked means no. So that's a yes-no field. The next type of field we have is called a character field, and that allows you to type whatever you want. And an example of that, an email field is kind of an example of that, but not really. So I'm going to navigate away from this visitor record to a member record. Let's see, do we have any fields that are character fields? Doesn't look like it. That's okay though. A character field is just a field that allows you to type a maximum of 50 characters. And it will look like similar to the email field where you can just kind of type in that box. The next type of field is a date field, like our birth date. And those fields, if you have an incomplete date, you can use question marks to fill in. So you could do, if you know just the month and the day, you could do 4 question marks for the year. So that is a date field. Then we have our email fields. We have email address and other, and those come with an unlisted checkbox in case you want to mark an email address to not print on a directory. The next type of field is a list field, and list fields are probably the most frequently used. List fields are any of these fields where you have a down arrow, an X, and a plus minus pencil button. The down arrow will show you your list field choices, the X will clear, and the plus minus pencil allows you to edit those list items, which we'll come back to in a moment. Another type of field is a numerical field that allows you, similar to a character field, you can type numbers into a numerical field. And the last type of field is a phone number field, such as a cell phone. So those are the types of fields we have. And in addition to the regular list fields that you see with the plus minus pencil button, if we open up addresses to edit them, the zip code, country, city, and state are all considered list fields, but they're special list fields that are maintained differently than the regular list fields. So where the regular list fields have that plus minus pencil button, the address list fields for city, state, zip code, and country all have a ... button instead. So if I erase those and click the ... you can see we get a list maintenance for our cities, states, zip codes, and countries. And so if anything in here is added incorrectly, like for example, we have Gahanna spelled with 2 N's and Gahanna spelled with 1 N. That's where our office happens to be located. So we're going to get rid of the one with 1 N because that's spelled incorrectly. So if we click the delete, the little minus at the far right side, we have a few choices. We can delete Gahanna just from the list, leaving it in the records where it's currently stored, but it won't be in this list. We can delete it from the list and from all addresses, or we can change it, or we can just cancel the deletion. So if we choose to delete it from the list, it leaves it in the addresses. If we choose the second option, it deletes it everywhere and leaves it blank. Or if we choose this third option, we can edit it. So I could change it to 2 N's, but since we already have 2 N's, I'll just go ahead and I will delete it. So that is how we maintain those special list codes. Next, we'll take a look at how we actually add, delete, and rearrange the fields on this individual fields area. So there are 2 places that you can do that. You can do it in the people file or from special functions up here at the top. Let me grab my highlighter again. So we have customized fields over here, and we have special functions, customized fields up here. Both will take you to the same screen. And that screen looks like this. It's got the list of all of the fields that come with the software and that have been created. And it has a category drop-down for members and visitors and any other categories you may add, like duplicate. You have a button up here in the top right to make all of the categories the same if you want them to be the same. In this example, I have separate lists for visitors and members. To add a field, all we need to do is click the Add button in the bottom left. Then we can type the name of the new field and choose the type like we talked about before. And then depending on the type determines the size of the field. Character fields can be up to 50, but you can make them smaller. And most of the other ones are you're not able to change the number of characters. If we add a field and we want to delete it, we can use this red minus button at the far right, and that will completely delete it. Now this warning message does let us know that deleting the field will delete all data from it, but since this is a brand new field, we're not worried about that, so we'll go ahead and say, yes, we do want to permanently delete this. Now it also says if you don't want to see the field, we can just uncheck the visible column. But since we added this new field and we don't actually need it, we'll go ahead and delete it. Now, if you have fields that you just want to hide but not delete, you can uncheck the visible box. Maybe we don't use church school, and so we'll just hide that. And we can then choose to hide it from this category only or from all categories. I'll choose all categories. And now it pops down to the bottom of the list and it is italicized so that we have another visual indicator besides the empty checkbox that this field is hidden. You also now have the option of making certain fields required. The directory report order is required no matter what. We can't uncheck that. And that's because that field is necessary to organize reports correctly, even if people are not going to be appearing on your formal church directories. We still need a directory report order to sort them correctly for other reports. And another thing that we can do in this screen is rearrange the order of the fields. So maybe I don't think family relation needs to be the second field. If we click the down arrow, we can move that field wherever we'd like it, just by using these up and down arrows. And that's available for any of the fields in this screen. You can sort for members and visitors the same or differently, like I mentioned before. And if you do want to make them all the same, after you get one list sorted the way you want it, you just click Mark All Categories the Same. The last things we're going to talk about are how we maintain our list codes. So if we click this plus minus pencil button for any of our list fields, it'll bring up a smaller window where we can maintain the codes. The codes can be numerical or letters, and then the description is where you spell out what type of code this is representing. If you want to stop using a code, you can check the inactive box to store the historical use of those codes, or you can click delete to remove it entirely. So, for example, maybe we want to add a code for constituent members. Whoops. It would help if I could type. So then we could add constituent. And maybe that's replacing associate. So we could uncheck, or we could check the inactive box for associate to hide that type of person. And then if we want to assign a code to a person, we click the Select Item button. And you'll see also when I checked that inactive box, it turned red. It may be a little hard to see, but it is showing up in red now. So that is how we maintain our list codes. You could do the same with a family relation or any of the other fields that have this plus minus pencil button. And then in order to arrange the fields, beside the Customize Fields button here, we have two options. We have a green zigzag that goes up and down and one that goes side to side. If we click the one that's going up and down, it lists our fields from top to bottom. And if we click the one that goes side to side, it arranges them across the screen and we scroll sideways. So those are your two options for the organization, the arrangement of the fields. And there's one final way that we can reorder the fields besides this up and down arrow in the Customize fields. We can also we can right-click on the individual fields area and Customize Layout comes up. And this allows us to simply drag and drop to rearrange the fields. And it will put them in a different order by dragging and dropping using these little numbers to determine the position or order of the fields. And when we're finished, we click Finished. So maybe I want to put marital status up higher and marriage date with that. So I just drag them, move them around, and click Finished. And then it stays the way that I reorganized them. All right, so that covers all of the pages in the workbook that we are going to be talking about today. Thank you all very much for attending today's webinar. If you don't have any questions, feel free to sign out. Otherwise, I will go ahead and stick around for a few more minutes and answer any other questions that come through. It looks like Josh has answered the ones that came in as I was working. So if you do have other questions, go ahead and type those in. If not, thank you for attending, and we'll see you next time. Victoria's asking about category codes for creating a directory. I'm not entirely sure I understand your question, Victoria. You can create category codes over here on the family side, and when you're running a directory, as long as you have the include on directory checked and the directory report order set, then you can include or exclude people in certain categories on your directory. So I hope that makes sense. Jean is asking if there is a way to make the fields show in the first column. So if I'm understanding, you can either put them all up and down so you only have one column, or if you want to keep it in the two-column order, but you want something from the further right to be higher up, you can either go to Customize Fields, like let's say we want giver number up toward the top. We can just come in here, click giver number, use the arrow button, and move it up as high as we want. And then when we click OK and come back, now it's moved that giver number to the first column. You can also do that by doing the right-click and customize layout that I talked about. Like if you want the membership date in the first column, we just drag it over from the second column and it moves. And then it'll stay in that order from there forward. So I hope that answers your question. Victoria, if you add a new field and you want that field to be in your directory, you would just have to customize the directory template. Jean, I think from what you're describing, if it's showing that way, if you're a web user, then yes, that's definitely why it's showing up that way if you're just leaving it open. But when you open it up, it should show you, if you've exited out and then you open people, when you open it fresh, it puts the first column to the left. But if you're logging off the web and leaving this open, then yeah, you'll definitely see it wherever you left it. So if you left it like this and you log off and then you log back in, it'll stay like exactly where you were. I mean, Jean, the better thing would be to just close people when you're done instead of leaving it. When you leave something open without, closing it and then reopening it, you could be causing weird temporary files to be hanging in the balance, if that makes sense, I would recommend closing people before you log out of the cloud like that. So that when you log back in, you're reopening it and it's refreshing it to where it should be. Okay, if there are no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and close the room. Thanks again, everybody. Bye-bye.